Have you ever looked at two neighbors, right next to each other, separated by just a little bit of water, and wondered how they ended up in two completely different worlds? Well, that's the story of Singapore and Malaysia. They started as one country, but man, their economic journeys couldn't be more different today. So, what happened? How did they diverge so dramatically? The answer, it turns out, is in a few critical decisions that set them on two wildly different paths.
Okay, let's just get right to it. Look at these numbers. Singapore's GDP per capita is sitting at around $90,000. Malaysia's about $14,000. That is a massive, massive gap. And it's really just the tip of the iceberg. This number right here, this is the central mystery we're going to unpack today. How on earth did this happen?
To really get this, we've got to go back in time, all the way back to one single pivotal date, 1965. This was the year Singapore left the Federation of Malaysia. But here's the key. It wasn't a friendly breakup. Singapore was, and I mean this literally, forced out. It was a moment of absolute crisis that, it turns out, would define both nations for the next 50-plus years.
Now, here's the crazy part. Back in 1965, if you were a betting person, all your money would have been on Malaysia. It was the obvious choice. It had land, it had tons of natural resources like rubber and tin, and a much bigger population. And Singapore? It was just this tiny island with basically nothing. No resources, not even enough fresh water. Most people thought it was doomed.
So how in the world did the underdog completely flip the script? This is where we see what we're calling the Great Divergence. And you can see it plain as day when you look at the data. The numbers tell this incredible story of two nations just heading in completely opposite directions.
Let's start with something that hits close to home for everyone, your paycheck. The median salary in Singapore is 5,500 Singapore dollars a month. In Malaysia, it's around 3,000 ringgit. Now, when you convert that, the Malaysian salary comes out to just over 900 Singapore dollars. Think about that. Right from day one of your career, you're living in two totally different financial realities. And that income gap, it doesn't come from nowhere. It's connected to something even more fundamental: education. In Singapore, a staggering 98% of young people go on to higher education. In Malaysia, it's just 41%. This huge difference in education directly impacts the kind of talent and skills each country has to build its future on.
So where did the big global investors put their money? Well, capital tends to vote with its wallet. And this chart from 2009 tells a really interesting story. For a long time, Malaysia was a star pupil, attracting tons of foreign investment, often second only to Singapore in the region. But look what happened. By 2009, it had started to fall behind its neighbors. The report called it a switch from being a top student to a humble student.
All right, so let's dig into Singapore's side of this. How did they do it? The secret, funny enough, was born out of fear and desperation. All those disadvantages, no resources, no land, no safety net, they turned that into their biggest motivation. Their entire strategy was forged in this constant, powerful sense of crisis.
So, knowing they couldn't dig wealth out of the ground, they made this absolutely brilliant strategic move. They decided to become a node city. What's that? It means they made themselves an essential hub, a critical connection point for global finance, for trade, for shipping, and for attracting top talent. They basically made it so the world couldn't function without passing through them.
And you can see this strategy in action with these two images. On the one hand, you've got the port, one of the busiest in the world, mastering the physical flow of goods. And on the other, you have advanced manufacturing, making high-value things like microchips. So they controlled both the highway for global trade and the factory making the high-tech stuff that travels on it.
So you might be asking, how do you actually pull that off? Well, it wasn't just one thing, it was a whole system working together. That constant sense of crisis led to really pragmatic, long-term thinking. They built a strict meritocracy to get the smartest people into government. And then they paid those civil servants really well, which was a deliberate strategy to fight corruption. All of this together created this stable, efficient machine that could make big plans and actually see them through.
Now, let's head back across the strait to Malaysia. The story here is almost a mirror image. If Singapore's journey was defined by having nothing, Malaysia's was shaped by having, well, almost everything. And ironically, that abundance led it straight into a classic economic problem, the middle-income trap. So what exactly is this middle-income trap? Well, think of it like this. It's when a country gets stuck. It's not the cheapest place to build stuff anymore, because other countries can do it for less, but it also hasn't become a leader in innovation, design, or marketing.
For decades, Malaysia has been a massive foundry for the world's electronics, assembling things for big brands, but it's been trapped in that lower profit assembly stage, really struggling to move up the food chain.
So why did Malaysia get stuck? It really boils down to a few major issues. First, having all those natural resources made it feel less urgent to make tough changes. Then you had the new economic policy, which focused on Malays first. This prioritized ethnic considerations, sometimes over pure economic growth. Combine that with years of political instability and huge corruption scandals like 1MDB, and you get a recipe for inconsistent, short-term policies.
And what's the long-term result of all this? Your best and brightest start to leave. That number you see, 5.5%, that's the share of Malaysians who are living and working outside of Malaysia. That is nearly double the global average. It's a classic brain drain. The country is effectively exporting its own future.
And you see this brain drain playing out in real life every single day. This comment from a Reddit forum just captures it perfectly. It's become a common life plan for many. Go earn the big bucks in Singapore, but then come home to Malaysia where your money goes a lot further. It perfectly sums up the economic forces pulling people across that border. Okay, so at this point, this story seems pretty clear, right? We've got a winner and a country that's struggling. But hold on, because this story is about to get a lot more complicated. It's definitely not over.
Just look at this number, 5th. What could that possibly mean in this story?
Get this. In a 2023 World Bank report, Malaysia's port of Tanjung Pelepas was ranked the 5th most efficient container port in the entire world. And you know who it was ahead of? Singapore. This single fact proves that Malaysia has world-class talent and can achieve incredible things. It totally messes with any simple story of decline. And, Malaysia still has some huge advantages. It's got a young population that's incredibly online, which makes it a perfect potential hub for the digital economy. And just like Singapore, its location right in the heart of Southeast Asia is a massive asset. The raw potential is absolutely 100% still there. Which brings us right back to the biggest question of all. The fates of these two nations were never really about their starting points. It was about their ability to change and adapt. Singapore was forced to transform by crisis. The real question now is, can Malaysia transform its incredible potential into a new path forward? And finally, break out of that middle-income trap? That's the billion-dollar question that will decide its future.